Hello and welcome to the show. We are going to jump straight into the heart of a problem that I think affects pretty much every single language learner at some point.
We are, and we're ready to guide you through it. Today we're focusing on that one specific challenge, that moment when your English learning just feels completely stuck.
Yeah.
You know the words, but they don't seem to move. You feel like you've hit a wall and you just don't know how to move forward.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. And I know this is going to feel familiar to a lot of you.
Yeah.
Have you ever been in a good conversation, maybe with a new colleague or when you're traveling, and you feel confident? You can explain your routine, maybe tell a funny story about the supermarket, and everything's just flowing.
Right, you're in the zone.
Exactly. But then the topic suddenly shifts.
Yeah.
Maybe they ask you what you think about something complex, like the future of work, or your deep feelings about a really challenging movie you just saw. And suddenly, poof.
The magic is gone.
It's gone. Your energy just vanishes. You realize the simple words you have aren't enough to express your complex, interesting thoughts. Your brain just freezes. And you feel that invisible, frustrating barrier.
That exact sensation is what language experts study. They call it the intermediate plateau.
A plateau. Okay.
Yeah, a plateau, is a flat area on a mountain. You climb really hard, you get to this flat space, and you expect the view to change, but you don't seem to be getting any higher.
You're just walking, not climbing.
Exactly. This blockage, it typically happens when you're moving from a comfortable functional level, let's call it B1, and trying to get to a much higher advanced level, like C1. The progress is still there, technically, but it slows down so much it feels completely blocked.
And that's so demotivating because you have worked so hard to get to B1. You feel like you've crossed continents of vocabulary just to get there?
You have. But today, our mission is clear. We're going to use what experts in cognitive science and language learning tell us about why this plateau happens. And more importantly, we're going to give you simple, science-backed steps.
And tools?
And mental tools, yes. These tools are designed to help your brain build new, faster language roads. It's a process you need to push right through that flat stage and, start climbing again.
All right, let's do it. Let's start by defining where we are when we hit this wall. We call it the intermediate level, or B1. For anyone who isn't familiar with that framework, what does B1 actually mean in practice?
Well, it means you're highly functional, you're independent, which is a massive achievement in itself.
It really is.
If we look at the common European framework for languages, a B1 learner is someone who can understand the main ideas in clear, standard English about familiar topics. If the news is talking about work or school or hobbies, you can follow the main story.
So if I'm traveling in an English-speaking country, I can handle all the necessary life tasks.
Absolutely. You can navigate most situations that would come up. You can describe your past experiences in detail. You can talk about your hopes for the future. And this is a crucial one. You can briefly explain the reasons for your opinions.
Okay.
Or the logic behind your plans. You can survive and communicate really effectively in daily life. It's a very solid, very useful foundation.
So if B1 is so practical, why does the jump to C1, the advanced level, why does it feel like trying to run through water? Why does the speed of progress suddenly drop off a cliff?
This is where we need to look at the learning curve from a different angle. We kind of need a new metaphor for how progress works.
Okay.
When you first start learning English, progress is fast, and it feels wonderful, right?
Yeah.
Because you're learning these fundamental building blocks. Every new word like eat or house or big, it unlocks a huge amount of new communication.
It feels like you're running down a very steep, smooth hill. The momentum is just huge.
That initial speed is so motivating you feel like a genius.
You do.
But here's the problem. True language acquisition isn't a downhill run. It's more like climbing a very tall mountain that has many false peaks.
Oh, I like that. False peaks.
Exactly. You think you've reached the top, you celebrate, you feel comfortable, that's B1, but then you look up and realize the real peak is still far away, and the ground just got much steeper and rockier.
So you expect the easy progress to continue, but the type of work you have to do has completely changed.
It has. The effort increases exponentially, but the visible, immediate result feels much, much smaller.
And why is that so intensely true for vocabulary? That feels like the biggest wall.
It is. This is because of what experts call the vocabulary gap. So let's break down the numbers simply. If you know about, say, 3,000 of the most frequent English words like the and, is, basic verbs, you can generally function. You can handle about 80% of daily conversation.
That's great for survival.
It is. But to move into those complex discussions we talked about, The deep documentaries, the abstract plans, the arguments. You need the vocabulary of an average adult native speaker. And that's closer to 20,000 words, maybe more.
Wow, 3,000 versus 20,000. That gap is just enormous. So how do we learn the other 17,000?
And here is the secret difficulty that really defines the plateau. At the beginning, those 3,000 words you learned were super frequent. You heard them in every sentence, every song, every simple book. That constant repetition made them stick almost instantly.
You didn't even have to try that hard. They were just everywhere.
Precisely. Now, to get past the plateau, you're targeting the other 17,000 words. And these words are, by definition, less frequent.
Right.
They're specialized words, more formal verbs, or these highly descriptive adjectives and adverbs. Think about the difference between saying, I bought a book,
Easy, frequent words.
versus saying, the author meticulously detailed the inherent problems with the dissemination of information.
Okay, yeah. Those second words, they do not appear in daily chat.
They don't. And because they appear less often, your brain needs much more exposure for them to stick. Research shows that for those really frequent words, you might only need to see them 3 or 4 times to remember them.
And for these plateau-breaking words.
To fully absorb them and to be able to use them, you might need to encounter them 6, 10, maybe even 12 times in different contexts.
So the amount of work you have to do goes way up, but the immediate reward learning one new word, it feels smaller.
You are working so much harder, reading longer articles, listening to advanced talks, just to gain one new, less common word. This feeling of increased effort for a diminishing return, that's exactly why you feel stuck.
So the plateau isn't a sign that you're a bad student.
Not at all. It's a signal that you've mastered the easy, frequent part of the language, and now the rules of the game have changed. You need a new strategy.
Which brings us to the fascinating way the brain actually handles all this change.
Yes. To really break through this flat period, we have to understand a fundamental truth about your mind. Your brain is not a fixed computer. It's a dynamic, living system. It's constantly changing and rebuilding itself based on what you do, what you think, and how you feel.
We can just call it brain change.
Brain change. Simple as that. Your actions today are literally changing the physical structure of your brain for tomorrow.
That's an amazing thought.
It is. Think of your language abilities like a road network inside your mind. When you were a child, you developed these vast, smooth, multi-lane highways for your native language.
You're L1.
Exactly. For English, though, you started with just small gravel tracks, little dirt paths.
And every time we practice, we're doing construction on those English paths.
Yes, every single time you engage with English consistently, whether you're speaking a sentence or listening to us right now or reading an article, you are actively working on that construction. You are paving and strengthening those English tracks.
The more you use a path, the wider and smoother it gets.
And faster. This is the physical reality of learning a language. The effort you put in causes measurable structural changes in your brain.
Knowing that the effort is literally building something physical, it makes the daily struggle feel much more worthwhile.
It absolutely should. And this constant work, this brain change, it gives you these hidden, powerful benefits that go way beyond just speaking English.
How so?
Learning a second language is basically like giving the most important parts of your mind a continuous, challenging workout.
A cognitive workout. I like that. We should all sign up for that.
It is. See, if you speak 2 languages, your brain constantly has to perform this difficult mental dance. When you want to speak English, your brain has to actively select the English system while, at the same time, suppressing or pushing down the interference from your native language.
Now, that's not easy.
Not at all. It's like trying to listen to one specific song in a room full of noise.
That's a perfect way to put it.
And that constant mental practice of task switching, of selecting the right language and ignoring the powerful default, it makes your brain incredibly skilled at filtering distractions in your general life, too.
So you get better at ignoring things that don't matter.
Exactly. You become much better at ignoring irrelevant information and focusing purely on the task at hand, whether that's studying for a test or completing a work project or managing a complicated schedule.
So, wait, learning English could actually make me better at my job, even if my job has nothing to do with language?
You've hit the core of it right there.
Yeah.
The brain muscle you build to manage 2 languages is the same muscle you use for sustained focus and handling interruptions.
Okay, give me an example.
Imagine you're working on something complex and the phone rings. A person who constantly practices this task switching, like a bilingual speaker, is often able to switch focus, handle the call, and then jump right back into the original complex task with less wasted time and fewer errors.
That is a powerful, practical benefit.
Yeah.
Now, you also mentioned that language can influence the way we organize our thoughts. Can you explain that a bit more simply?
Certainly. Language is the container for thought, right? The specific structure of English, for instance, it tends to emphasize clarity and action and specificity very early in the sentence.
Subject, verb, object.
Right. It encourages a very linear, step-by-step organization. So if you're learning English and you're constantly engaging with this structure, it subtly influences how you structure abstract concepts, things like how you view time or how you define relationships.
So the language itself promotes a certain way of thinking.
It can. By using this new structure, your thinking might start to feel more organized, more goal-focused, more practical. Just because you're forced to put your ideas in that clear order demanded by English grammar, it gives you an entirely new mental framework.
That's profound. It's not just getting a new set of tools. It's like getting a new kind of workshop to build your ideas in.
And here is a critical insight, especially for those high-stakes conversations we talked about at the start, job interviews, complex negotiations, big life decisions.
Okay.
Research shows that when bilingual people make decisions while actively thinking in their second language, like English, they're often less emotional, less impulsive than when they're thinking in their native language.
Less emotional.
I think so.
That seems like the opposite of what I expect. Why would switching languages create distance from my feelings?
Because the second language system isn't fully automatic for you yet. It forces a tiny, almost instantaneous moment of reflection. When you use English to evaluate a problem, you're creating a sort of psychological buffer, a small distance, between the raw emotion and your quick, impulsive response.
So if I'm having an argument with someone and I force myself to state my point in English, I might actually respond more logically.
Precisely. You evaluate the choices more logically because the emotional intensity that's tied to your native language is slightly reduced. This ability to create distance helps with clearer, more rational decisions, whether you're taking an exam or just having a complicated conversation with a friend. It's a huge benefit for anyone trying to push through that intermediate wall.
So we're investing in mental clarity and emotional intelligence, not just vocabulary. That knowledge, it makes the effort required to break the plateau seem much less daunting.
Okay, now that we understand the deep science of brain change, the first practical step to breaking the plateau has to be a mental shift. We need to install the right engine to power our learning, especially because, as you said, progress starts to feel so much slower.
Absolutely. The number one reason intermediate learners stall is not a lack of intelligence. It's a reliance on something that is just reliable. Motivation.
Right.
Motivation is like sunshine. It's great when it's there, but it comes and goes with the weather. If you only study English when you feel excited and motivated, your progress is going to be sporadic, inconsistent, and ultimately very slow.
We need to shift the focus from feeling good to being consistent. Yes. We shift our philosophy to systems over goals. A big, distant goal like, I must be perfectly fluent next year, is often too overwhelming. It's too distant to be effective. It's hard to work for something that's so far away.
So what does the system look like instead?
A system is a small, easy, daily habit that you commit to no matter how you feel. For example, I will listen to 15 focused minutes of English every morning while I drink my coffee.
Or I will review 5 flashcards before I go to sleep.
Exactly. This continuous small-scale practice forces your brain to constantly challenge itself, but in manageable doses. It's the power of the small drop of water that slowly carves the rock.
Yes.
When you perform a habit consistently, your brain starts building dedicated pathways to make that habit easy and automatic. You are strengthening those language roads every single day, which is the only way to get that measurable physical brain change.
So consistency is more important than the length of time you study. Much more important. Okay, that sounds great for consistency. But what about the emotional side? The plateau is a time when people are terrified of making mistakes, and that fear just stops them from opening their mouths.
That is the perfect transition to the next piece, adopting a growth mindset. We have to radically change how we view mistakes. For so many learners, mistakes feel like failures. They feel like proof that you lack talent, and that's just false.
So what are mistakes if they aren't failures?
Mistakes are essential learning opportunities. If you're not making mistakes, it means you are not pushing yourself hard enough. You're staying safely inside your comfort zone.
A mistake is just proof that you're challenging your brain.
Exactly. It's proof that you're actively trying to create new, complex output.
But how do we make sure we're not just repeating the same errors over and over, the fossilized mistakes, if we aren't focused on perfection?
That is a critical challenge for sure. The pursuit of perfection, waiting until you know everything before you speak, that is the true enemy of consistent practice. When you make a mistake, your brain flags it as something important. By actively returning to that error, for example, writing down a sentence you struggled with and rewriting it correctly later, you guide the change. You stop that error from becoming a permanent automatic habit.
So you're using the mistake as a map for what to fix next, not as a reason to stop.
You've got it. The goal isn't to be perfect, but to be consistently better than you were yesterday.
How do we maintain this positive energy when the climbing gets steep and we feel frustrated?
We need to harness the extraordinary power of your brain's internal filter system. Your mind has this system, we can just call it the brain's filter, that is constantly searching the world for proof to support whatever you currently believe.
Wait, so if I believe something, my brain actively looks for evidence to prove it's true?
Precisely. Think of it like this. If you decide tomorrow that you want to buy a green umbrella, suddenly everywhere you look on the street, in movies and shops, you start seeing green umbrellas.
They were always there, but I just never noticed them before.
They were always there, but your filter decided they were suddenly important and brought them to your attention.
That's a very clear example. So how does this filter work against us in language learning?
If you constantly repeat inside your head, I am terrible at English, or I always hesitate, your brain's filter will diligently find every single mistake, every moment of hesitation, every forgotten word.
It confirms your negative belief.
Yes, and this increases the mental and emotional barrier to speaking.
So we have to change the programming of the filter itself.
Exactly. We have to train the brain to look for success instead. And the most effective ways to do this are through affirmations and visualization.
Okay, tell me about affirmations.
It's practicing positive self-talk, saying sentences out loud like, I am actively improving my speaking every day, or I use my English confidently in new situations.
And visualization. How does just imagining something physically help?
Visualization is imagining yourself succeeding. Close your eyes and vividly imagine yourself having a smooth, stress-free conversation. Imagine successfully giving that presentation or eloquently describing that complex movie without stumbling.
So you're pre-living the success.
You are. This trains your brain to expect success. It lowers the emotional barrier because when the real moment arrives, your brain has already processed a successful scenario, making the actual act of speaking feel less scary. It lets your newly paved language roads function smoothly.
Okay, we have the right mindset, consistency and self-belief. Now let's move to the physical actions, the high-impact strategies. The plateau is that gap between passive knowledge, what you understand, and active skill, what you can actually say.
Exactly. And these strategies are the bridge. The first, most powerful strategy is about how you manage your study time. It should replace those long, exhausting study sessions. We call it microburst learning combined with spaced repetition.
Tell us more about the microburst. Why short and focused?
Your brain is not built to focus intensely for 3 hours straight. The quality of your learning drops dramatically after about 20 minutes. A microburst is an intense, hyper-focused study session, just 10 to 15 minutes long, that you do frequently.
So studying for 10 focused minutes every day is better than 3 hours on a Saturday.
Exponentially more effective, yes, because it respects how your brain consolidates information. When you learn something new, the memory is fragile. You need time for your brain to process it, to move it from short-term storage to long-term memory. Daily, short bursts allow that crucial consolidation to happen every night while you sleep.
And we combine this with spaced repetition.
We do. This method involves reviewing vocabulary or grammar at increasing intervals. The key moment is reviewing the information right before your brain forgets it completely.
Not waiting until I've forgotten it, but catching it just in time. Why is that timing so important?
That moment, the retrieval moment, is when your memory connection is at its weakest, but still accessible. Forcing your brain to retrieve that weak memory strengthens the connection dramatically.
And if you wait too long?
It's like learning it all over again. If you review too soon, you're not challenging the memory enough. Spaced repetition tools like digital flashcard apps, they track this timing for you, ensuring every review session maximizes the strength of that long-term memory. It turns fragile knowledge into permanent skill.
That's truly science-backed learning. Okay, strategy number 2 is about overcoming that physical feeling of hesitation when you're speaking.
That is shadowing. We often call it the mouth workout.
The mouth workout, I like it.
Shadowing means you listen to a native speaker from an audio track or a podcast, and you try to repeat the words, the rhythm, the flow, the intonation almost at the same time. You're speaking like a verbal echo.
It feels incredibly awkward, especially at first.
It does feel strange, but it is one of the most powerful things you can do. Shadowing forces the listening part of your brain and the speaking part of your brain to work together at speed. This physical repetition is called motor rehearsal.
And what does that motor rehearsal achieve?
It trains your mouth and your tongue muscles. The specific physical movements needed to link English sounds together, but without requiring that slow, conscious translation from your native language.
So when you reduce the physical friction, you reduce the hesitation. You're building muscle memory for fluency.
Exactly. It gets rid of the ums and uhs.
Yeah.
It makes your English sound more natural and rhythmic. But since it's so intense, we advise doing it only for short, high-energy sprints.
How long?
5 to 10 minutes maximum per day.
Yeah.
You have to focus on matching the speaker's exact pronunciation and flow not on understanding the deep meaning. It's a physical exercise.
Excellent. Finally, how do we make sure the new vocabulary we learn is immediately active and ready for conversation?
That is strategy 3, contextual vocabulary. Learning words in isolation, like writing a list of 10 nouns and their translations, is very weak learning. When the pressure is on, your brain has to work too hard to remember the word and then put it into a correct sentence.
So we need to learn language in chunks, not just individual bricks.
Precisely. We must learn words as phrases, what are called collocations. Words that naturally go together. Instead of learning the word commit, you learn commit to the goal.
Instead of heavy, you learn heavy traffic.
Yes. This makes your English retrieval much faster and much more natural sounding. But the deeper level of this is linking the new phrase directly to a physical action or an image in your real life.
Okay, can you give us a concrete example of how to do that?
Let's say you're trying to learn the word pour. Instead of just writing pour in your notebook, the next time you are making tea or coffee, you stop and you say the full English phrase out loud. I am going to pour the water into the cup.
You say it while you're doing it.
While the action is happening, this direct sensory link between the action and the phrase, it bypasses your native language completely and builds a direct, fast connection in your English road system.
So we're planting the words directly into our daily routines. We're connecting our physical world with our new language world. This all really comes together. Consistency, mindset, and active practice.
And since you are listening to us right now, it's the perfect time to talk about how podcasts are truly excellent tools for intermediate learners, especially those focused on active fluency.
How so?
Well, clear, structured audio provides what we call comprehensible input English, you can mostly understand, but that still includes a small percentage of new, challenging vocabulary.
And that challenge is what you need to break the plateau. We can't just listen to things we already know perfectly.
Exactly. But here is the critical tool that converts simple, passive listening into deep, actionable learning, the transcript.
Right. So if listening is passive, how does the transcript make it active?
Passive listening only trains your ear for the overall meaning and rhythm. It builds your receptive skills. But deep learning, the kind you need to get from B1 to C1, it requires active analysis. The transcript is essential because it lets you pause the complex sound and analyze the complex structure.
So you can see the spelling, you can check the grammar.
You can confirm the grammar, see how ideas were connected. Active engagement with the transcript is the essential bridge from passive listening to active speaking.
Okay, let's integrate everything we've talked about. Microbursts, shadowing, vocabulary mining into a structured routine. A plan for how a learner can maximize the value of one single show like this one.
We can outline a powerful 90-minute study cycle, and this is best completed not in one go, but broken into those 10 to 30-minute microbursts throughout the week.
Okay, step 1.
Step 1, listen once. That's about 20 minutes. This is the pure listening stage. Listen to the entire episode without pausing and absolutely do not look at the transcript yet.
Just train your ear.
Train your ear for general meaning, intonation, and rhythm. And crucially, it trains you to be comfortable with not understanding every single word, which is necessary for real-life conversations.
Builds confidence. Okay, step 2.
Step 2, listen and read. About 30 minutes for this. Now, you listen to the episode again, but this time you follow along carefully with the transcript. This is where the sound converts into concrete knowledge.
And you pause. You check words.
You pause, you check spelling, you analyze the sentences, you're filling in the gaps your ear missed the first time.
And the next step brings in the physical practice.
Step 3. Shadowing. Just 10 minutes. Use the transcript now purely as a guide. Your goal is not meaning, it's imitation. Mimic the speaker's rhythm and speed intensely. We only dedicate 10 minutes because it requires maximum concentration. It's a sprint.
Got it. Step 4. Vocabulary mining. This is the collector stage.
It is. About 20 minutes here. Go through the transcript and collect 5 to 10 high-value phrases. Focus specifically on what we call Category 2 words, those words you understood when you heard them, but you never actually use yourself.
The plateau breaking words.
Those are the ones. Add them immediately to your flashcard system for spaced repetition. You have to actively move them from passive recognition to active production.
And the final step.
Step 5. Summarize output. 10 minutes. This is the final essential step. It's called active retrieval practice. Write or speak a summary of the episode. Even if you only speak for 60 seconds or write 4 sentences, this act of forcing your brain to produce structured English is necessary for advanced fluency.
It solidifies everything you learn.
It does. It tests your ability to retrieve and organize the new knowledge under pressure.
That cycle is brilliant because it moves from passive input to rigorous active output. That's the definition of breaking the wall. What other low-pressure practices should learners add to their daily lives?
First and foremost, extensive reading is absolutely key for B1 to C1 progress. We talked about that 20,000-word gap. Daily reading of books or articles you genuinely enjoy helps bridge that gap, because written texts use a much wider variety of higher-level vocabulary than daily conversation.
And what about stopping those simple, recurring, fossilized mistakes we discussed?
Use writing as your main tool for self-correction. When you speak, you don't have time to think about verb tense. When you write, you have all the time in the world. Use that time to review your work and consciously spot those small grammar mistakes you repeat automatically when you're speaking under pressure.
And finally, the crucial step to permanently moving past the need for translation. Thinking in English.
Yes. Practice low-pressure output when you're alone. Start having an internal monologue. Just think simple thoughts in English throughout your day. Narrate what you see. The cat is sleeping, or I must lock the door before I leave.
You can also record short voice notes to yourself on your phone.
That's a great one. This constant low-stakes output solidifies the English system and trains your brain to make English the default mode of thought rather than constantly translating. When you can think in English, you are truly fluent. We have covered a lot today, from the physical science of brain change to some very practical study systems. Here's the core message we want you to take away. Hitting the intermediate plateau is not a punishment. It's not a sign of failure. It is simply a natural signal that the methods you used to get to B1 have done their job, and now you need to change your approach.
So adopt the growth mindset.
Adopt the growth mindset, trust in the science that says your brain is always changing, and implement those daily systems, the microbursts, the shadowing, the summarizing, to ensure that unwavering consistency.
You are actively building new, faster road networks in your mind every single day. And that takes intention and specific, targeted practice. We've looked at powerful techniques that build speed and rhythm, like shadowing, and techniques that build accuracy, like careful grammar correction through writing.
Now here is a final thought for you to consider, something to think about after our conversation today.
I'm ready.
When you're speaking English in a real-life situation, which is the ultimate goal, which ability is more instantly valuable for effective communication? Is it speaking fast and sounding natural with a strong, confident rhythm, or is it speaking slowly and hesitantly but using absolutely perfect, flawless grammar?
Think about that critical balance between fluency and accuracy. You need both to be successful, of course, but which one opens the door to connection and communication faster when you only have a moment?
We are so proud of you for taking this time to invest in yourself and in your future fluency. And we want to hear from you. What is the one word, the one phrase, or maybe the most surprising lesson you learned today?
Write it in the comments below. We want to read your thoughts and cheer you on as you take the steps to break through your plateau. Go take that one step today. Implement one microburst. We will talk to you next time.
Keep learning and keep building those roads.